Right. Welcome everybody to our November full council meeting. Before we start, we'll just run through procedures for if there is a fire. So we'll leave the building through the fire exits which are there and then the front entrance, and we'll assemble at the far end of the car park. So the first 10 minutes is dedicated to the open forum. Is there any members of the public that would like to ask a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, or whatever your title is tonight. I see on the agenda it mentions about the cemetery chapels.
Mm-hmm.
How many tenders were put in for the roofing work?
There were 3 tenders put in for the roofing work, and it was put out on the government tender website for the allocated time. And we received 3 tenders back, and council decided to go for the cheapest price and the shortest timescale, which was agreed, and the contractor was instructed.
Is the chapels not slated with Welsh slate?
Yes, the chapels is slated with Welsh slate, but we have got permission from the conservation officer that because it is repair work, and we are reusing as many of the slates as we possibly can, then it doesn't need listed building consent, and we have got that in writing from the conservation officer at South Holland District Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? So that's the end of the open forum. We'll now instate standing orders and begin with the first agenda item. So agenda item 103, apologies for absence and reasons given.
Apologies have been received from councillors Stephen Johnson, Eddie McNally, Dan Taylor and Evelyn Penny, and none have been received from councillor John Spencer, who is absent. Could I have a proposal, please? Thank you. All agreed.
Agenda item 104, clerk's report.
Okay, so we have a vacancy on Town Ward that has now been cleared for co-option, which will be for the 13th of December meeting. Item B is co-option of other councillors. We've currently got a vacancy for Herne Ward, 1 for Drove Ward, and two vacancies for Town Ward, which are available for co-option, and we have 1 person put in their papers who's not yet.
So welcome Mark to our meeting.
Thank you.
Would you just like to say a few words to introduce yourself to the council and the members of the public present?
Yep, I'm Mark Murphy. I've lived in Holbridge all my life. I'm a teacher, maths teacher at Deeping School. I used to teach at University Academy Holbridge and also Peel, so I've had quite a bit of local work and knowledge in the school environment. And yeah, I'm just thought I would put in for a co-option.
Right, so for the co-option of Mark, do we have a proposer and seconder, please? Rachel and Peter. All agreed? So item C, update on the...
Sorry, I've just gone in.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's joining.
Okay, so item C, update on other venues for the monthly meetings, Deputy Clerk. Now, I would like to propose that we defer this till the spring, as we don't really want to be travelling to outside venues whilst it's still dark at night. So, is everybody, do we have a second for that?
Can I make a comment? Obviously, I travel out
Anyway.
When you say spring, are you like talking April, May?
Yeah, I mean, we still have this venue booked for up until December, so we'll be looking to start probably April time. We can have all the feedback from all of the other venues by that point, and then agree a rota going forward, moving
Yeah,
forward.
there's several of us who do riding.
Yeah.
Yeah, be nice to have a time around.
What other venues are in the offing?
I've contacted St Mark's at the minute and they know because they've got the gym there. St John's, I ring him say 3 times a week, but I have to ring after 6 o'clock because he works apparently. I've not got through at all. So
What about
if there's any
Hobby
other options? I haven't got enough hobby churn. If you'd like to say any options, if you'd like to email me with numbers, I can contact them and get prices.
I can certainly have a word with St John's.
St John, yeah, that'd be good.
And the other one I thought of was Elizabeth and Centre.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can get all the details together, contact everybody, know the availability for March, April time, then we can put together a rota for going out to all the villages.
That'd be great.
Yeah, just a couple of points. One to follow on there, I think the Elizabeth Centre is actually in Watlow Parish. It's the other side of the division drains, it was just outside there.
It'd be nice to include them.
Yeah. I'm assuming there's no problems with this meeting being venued outside of the parish meetings. That's a consideration there. And just go back to the point on the dark thing, whilst I understand it's not arranged to go outside Colwich until January, because obviously we've got this venue till then, I don't really think travelling in the dark is necessarily a very inclusive criteria for saying that, because as you say, a number of us do travel in the dark to get to this location anyway, so it's a bit of a moot point.
Carol?
It is me, if I have to go down to Herne and places like that in the dark, I'm afraid I wouldn't be confident. But, I know that sounds silly, but there you go.
Right, so is everybody happy with that? All agreed? That we'll defer till springtime? Yeah. Thank you. Item D, correspondence received.
So we've received an email regarding the local transport plan consultation, which is for individuals to respond to, which I have forwarded to all the councillors, so hopefully they've completed that. So that's been done.
That's it, that bit. Okay, thank you. Item 105, declarations.
We put that out on the Facebook page. Could we get any feedback and questions on that?
Yes, it went on the Facebook page. We've got a few likes, but no comments in particular. So, yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. So, item 105, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Localism Act of 2011, and to consider any requests for dispensations in respect of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests in agenda items. So if anybody has any non-pecuniary or pecuniary interests, either declare them now or at the relevant agenda item. Thank you. So, agenda item 106, minutes of the previous meeting. To agree the notes of the meeting of the 11th of October 2021 as the minutes. Do you have a proposal and a seconder? Everybody agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 107, police, county and district matters.
So police report. We've had a few problems with drug use in the toilets in Carter's Park, but that is being covered under the Open Spaces Committee part of the meeting. And also some youths have been climbing on buildings in the park and cemetery. There's been some complaints regarding parking and speeding along Spalding Road, which have been passed to Councillor Tracy Carter. and reports of benches being moved in Park Road Cemetery. They were moved quite a distance, one bench was particular, but we don't know who's done it. So that's that. And Councillor Carter has given a district report. Just a couple of brief notes. The main thing to update us on is the work to the beacon is in hand, so it should be ready in plenty of time for the Jubilee event, and she will confirm once it's completed. Obviously she says we get any road closures, but unfortunately for some reason we didn't receive this one, which is works in Fleet Street outside the Co-op potholes, now scheduled. Various lighting work in the town has now been completed on a 24 hours turnaround after she raised a complaint after seeing the issue on Facebook. The gully grating that was collapsed on Boston Road just up from Holbeach Tyres is now completed, safe and replaced. Wignall's dip in road now resurfaced, including the curbstones and gully work. And she says, I also note on your agenda you have parking on High Street on it to discuss. Just so as you are aware, I've already been having conversations in regard to this with the highways manager, particularly along the area opposite the church on High Street. People parking along by Irresistibles and Chosen area. That then cause an issue for lorries or buses to pass when there is a queue for the lights. So to let you know, these conversations are already happening, early stages, away, and have been for a few weeks. We'll update parish members with any relevant information as and when it becomes available on that. That's district and county. Just make one comment. The Wignall's Gate dip, the last time I went down there, which was the end of last week, it was still not in a particularly good state, so I will have another check when I go that way, but it wasn't what I would call a complete repair.
Does anybody else have anything to raise in county and district matters? No? Okay. So item 108, highway matters.
We've got 3 road services, resurfacing works, and it's Hither Oldgate from 6th of the 12th, 21 to the 8th of the 12th. Then we've got carriage maintenance works in Wignall's Gate between the 30th of the 12th and the 24th of the 12th. An emergency collapsed sewer repair in Boston Road South between Cecil Highwell Avenue and a point 80 metres north, period of restriction 27th of October to the 16th of November. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Item 109, Open Spaces Committee, which I'll hand over to Councillor Rachel Flood for her report.
Good evening all. After our meeting the other night, we'd like to welcome a new member of our Parks team who started on the 18th of October. The Parks team have the chipper working and following the raising of the canopy of Park Road Cemetery, and then rechipping the timber what they took down, which is great. We have some minor vandalism in the toilets in Carter's Park, and the youths have been reported to climbing on the roof. Someone has been defecating in the urinals and the gents, which is really nice for our guys to have going to clean up. And the evidence of drug taking in our toilets has been reported several times now, which is something we're going to have to address very, very soon. The police have been informed. The committee have agreed the design of the inclusive swing, and we've agreed on the scoop type seat. The trees from the LCC will be arriving in January, so we'll start a plan of where we're going to be putting them. Problems at the battlefield allotments with the allotment holders bringing waste to the site. This is now classed as fly tipping, so something we're addressing at the moment. Also the waste being brought to the site to be set fire to. This is against our policies, and the people have now been contacted, so hopefully that's been sorted. Councillor Johnson has met with the Waddles Rescue, read the risk assessment queries we have. All lots have been replaced in Clark's Park and Park Road Cemetery. And work is underway to sell some of our redundant equipment, which is still ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So item A, to review the locking up contract, to resolve to exclude the press and public under the public body's admissions to meetings Act 1960 due to the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. Do I have a proposer and seconder to take that into closed session? Rachel, Rick. Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. So item B, to agree to relet the 5 allotments in Battlefields. We currently have 5 vacant plots, and now the investigation into the asbestos has been complete. We are able to relet these. So do I have a proposer and a seconder, please? All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 110, Planning, Properties, Emergency Planning and Speed Committee. Due to the absence of the Chair of Planning, I'll hand over to the Vice Chair, Pete Sparks, to do the report.
Thank you very much. At the planning, I'll paraphrase, the planning meeting on Tuesday, 26th of October, we followed an agenda and the following key points were noted. Planning applications were reviewed, no objections were made, no comment concerning one particular application regarding traffic was noted, and all of those have been updated to South Point District's planning site. A traffic and speeding update was provided. This is again being rotated around the parish. Several TRO requests have been put in based on provisional requests for speed reductions. And as I mentioned earlier, the Facebook post went out about there's some really good feedback from that. I've got a list of potential new sites, although I suspect, and I'm investigating, 3 of them actually not to be within the parish boundary. So I'll obviously identify those and pass them on as necessary. We discussed urgent fire alarm works at Cougar, and they were approved. Other works were part of that discussion, and they'll be held over to the new year. The cemetery chapel roof work is awaiting the delivery of the sites. A draft budget was discussed, agreed, and submitted to the Finance Committee for next year. And a request to identify heritage sites within the parish was discussed, and a small number of sites noted. These will pass on, I believe, on the agenda later on. So a fairly wide scope of discussion also.
Thank you, Peter. So agenda item A, to agree the planning application responses. We have 2 planning applications to agree tonight. We have H09078421, erection of 38 dwellings with associated roads and sewers, Amendment 3, changes to bin collection point. And H09110821, continued use of site for up to 43 touring caravans and existing 12 static caravans for all-year holiday use, and use of 2 static caravans as manager staff accommodation. So the proposed comments were put on the drive, and it's proposed to not comment on either of them. So do you have a proposal and seconder for that?
No objections, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you. All agreed? Item B, to agree to give the contract keys to Cemetery Chapel for the duration of the works. As Councillor Isabel Hutchinson has been dealing with this item, I'll pass over to you just to explain.
Yeah, the contractors will need access to the cemetery chapels whilst doing the work. The start date has been delayed due to some of the materials not being available straight away, so we are awaiting a start date, but we just need to agree that they can have a set of keys for the duration of the contract.
We've been all sorted out, because obviously we had trouble getting in. Has it been sorted?
No, we're still waiting to get back from the Cemetery Chapels Trust.
Okay, that's a bit of the back then, isn't it?
We have access to one side, but we just need to get the link sorted for the other side, yes. Yeah. Any other comments? Do we have a proposal and seconder for that? Yeah, all agreed? Item C, to discuss request from Krishna a Holdridge Drove for a defibrillator. So has anybody got any comments or thoughts on this agenda item? Carol?
Can I just in the case of needing to use a defibrillator, should the person using it be trained? No, any member of the public could just use it. So presumably there's instruction,
Yeah.
I'm not no idea what happens.
Yeah, so with the defibrillators, when you purchase them, they show you the instructions of how to use them, depending on the type. So, yeah.
It talks you through it.
Oh, I see. Right, thank you.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It tells you what to do.
Okay, thank you.
Rachel?
So, is she asking for the money for this, or the permission to cite it, or, because I haven't seen this request?
I think at this stage it is just a request to look into positioning one down at Holbeach Drove in terms of funding, etc. Nothing's been requested for from the parish council, so it's in terms of what help we could give as a council to facilitate this. Is there any other groups that would be able to help in terms of funding, etc.? Is it something we want to look into as a parish council?
So we could signpost it to the local charities what are doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any suggestion as to where it would go? Presumably near the shop?
Well, I would have thought so, probably somewhere near the petrol station there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would imagine it's probably something that Councillor Packer would be interested in as well, as he supported the defibrillator installation training programme. So
Okay.
something close to us, obviously saving lives in the past.
Yeah,
So
so if we
that
can
might be a
contact them.
good way of getting interest raised on her behalf.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll pass on any relevant details to the parishioner and try and get them pointed in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that, if we point out to the Commissioner if they contact Lives have got a very good scheme which, and they can tell them everything they need to know.
Thank you. So item D, to agree the 3 properties for inclusion in the heritage assets. So I'll hand back to Peter for this, as it was discussed at the last planning committee meeting.
I can't remember which three
Do you want me
sites
to?
they were.
Do you want me to?
Yes, you can.
The 3 sites that I thought of, I mean, there may be more that other people are interested in, but the 3 sites that I was thinking of is the Chequers, because it's key to the central part of the town, the old market house, which obviously part of which we own, and also potentially Calthrop's building, because they are all quite key buildings within the centre of town.
So I believe with this list, it doesn't mean it was actually going to become listed or any additional requirements be put in place for planning. It is just to make planners aware that it is a kind of an asset in terms of heritage for the area. So is there any other buildings that people can think of? I believe open spaces and things like that are excluded. So it will just be any buildings that are not listed currently that people want to include in addition to the other 3.
Is the Mansion House listed?
Carol?
So I don't know what that building is where the hairdressers is, the very unique.
By the church?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that included?
That is not listed and it's not on the list we're proposing at the moment, but we can add that to
It's
it.
certainly it's the one when I'm out with the camera, that's the one that takes my eye.
Certainly.
Should be building.
It will be,
number 6.
yeah, it's next to 4 Master, so number 6. Yeah. So do I have a proposer and seconder for that list with the amendment of number 6 High Street? Carol, is that? Thank you. All agreed?
Just a final point on that. Obviously, it's not that it allows its building to attract listed status. It's there so that they're aware of it in planning considerations. And I suspect as time goes on, if we identify other buildings or other locations within the parish, we'd be open to adding those to the list as well. So as and when they come up, if they can be brought up to the local committee or the council, then we can propose to add those to the list on an ongoing basis.
Thank you. So item E, to agree to request improved signage at Saturday Bridge. Now, I know, Peter, you brought that up at the planning meeting, so do you want to discuss what you thinking?
There have been several accidents there recently. It's a dangerous spot. I mean, it's a 60 mile an hour along the road in both directions, and people don't slow down. Do they? They don't slow down.
They don't.
And on several occasions, cars have ended up in the dike. There was approaching from Holbeach towards Holbeach St John's. There was an illuminated sign at one point that used to work intermittently, which I think probably would help if that was reinstated. I don't know whether you could apply to reduce the speed limit at the junction.
I think probably one of the first movements would be to raise it as a concern through TRO guys. They're very similar to the concerns over the 90-degree bend that we get called orders of job. We know recently, but they have recently put in some repeater reflectors, which seems to be having an effect, I have to say. So it's that sort of thing, I think, that we probably will get more traction to get involved. We could put in a request to reduce the speed limit. Certainly we could put in a concern about the quality and the repair state of the signage there, if we do that on the street. So I think there's a number of things we can do alongside actually looking to get a reduction in speed limit. I think you'd struggle because of the fact there's only one house, I think, in the proximity.
It's just one on the corner.
So yeah, the risk quotient wouldn't be there, but certainly we can be able to follow up with our concerns. Is that something that we maybe could probably write summarising those concerns to LCC and asking what they could possibly do?
Request signing.
Yes, so do we want to amend the agenda item to write to LCC with the concerns and also requesting signage plus any other things that can
Can I propose then amendment to the agenda item on that basis?
Yeah, do we have a seconder for that? Tom? Yeah. So all those agreed to the amendment to the agenda item? Thank you. And then proposing the actual...
So can we propose to write to LCC regarding concerns over the speed limit of the Southgate Bridge, the quality of the signage, and requesting that they improve the safety of that junction.
Seconder? All agreed? Thank you. So item F, to discuss the parking in the High Street. So I believe this was requested last meeting by Evelyn and Sam. So I don't know whether you want to start the discussion off as to your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just very concerned. I mean, parking from QD, I think it's just up from QD actually, the double yellows stop at just past Irresistibles, I think it is. Obviously, people do park there and they park there for a good long time. Pulling out of the checkers, as the more and more people are doing, I think most of the flats at the back of the checkers are now let. It's not there. And come 4 o'clock, it is right the way down to the zigzags at the crossing and beyond.
Yeah. I know coming down there, especially around 4 p.m,
It is.
buses and everything struggle to get through. Obviously, Tracy Carter has stated in her report that she is looking into that area specifically already and having conversations with highways about that. In terms of something else that we've obviously looked into, in terms of the welcome back funding that we've put in for district to put planters, etc., down the high street, developing that idea, we've discussed with district whether we could place them on the highway to prevent a certain amount of parking in particular places to try and ease that issue, because a physical barrier is sometimes better than double yellows. Has anybody else got any thoughts or ideas that we could put forward? Peter?
Is this to do with the takeaways along there?
Takeaway shops, everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I can quite clearly see why there is a need for people to park. If you buy a bag of compost from QD, you cannot carry it physically where do you carry it? So that at the moment there's, I think they say 20 minutes loading time.
Yep.
But at nights, past 4 o'clock, honestly, it's just a car park.
You do get a lot of delivery drivers parking up outside certain
Well,
delivery shops as well.
They have to be delivered to.
My only other comment is that obviously of the evenings, once the takeaways are open, there is a lot of parking on the pavement outside of the church as well, and it may be, I don't know whether it will solve it, but I do think we need to revisit asking South Holland whether they would reconsider reopening the car park in Boston Road at night time again, because the more housing we're getting in the town centre, they've got nowhere to park, and then they're having to park on the side of the road, and then the takeaways are open and then more people are parking on the side of the road. Even if they only opened half of the car park as a trial, just to see, I do think we need to revisit that, and I request that as an agenda item to request that we do that next meeting.
They could park out the front of the forest if they chose to walk, but a lot of them choose not to walk.
True.
That is the trouble.
It's a good problem. People like convenience for takeaway to takeaway. You can turn up, buy it and take it away. You know, people don't like walking.
Sam?
A delivery driver working from, there's that many takeaways there, there's 2 takeaways there now. Both of them have got 2 delivery drivers each. That's 4 cars parked, and they're not going to park on the car park or in Boys' car park each time they come back to get a delivery.
So there's definitely an issue identified. Obviously, we can speak to our local county councillor. She's already, speaking with Highways about that issue. If we agenda it for another meeting to agree to write formally, because obviously this agenda item is just to discuss, would that be appropriate for the planning committee meeting to speed things up a little bit? Yeah. Sorry, Karen.
If the issue is that at 4 o'clock between not 4 and 5, is it?
It is 4 and 9.
Also, it's not appropriate
Evening
then
is
to have a restricted parking, say no parking between them.
You're killing business. What are you
Yeah.
you're telling your takeaways to go take away.
Right, so we'll agenda that whole planning meeting to get it agreed to write formally to our county councillor and Highways to discuss what possible solutions could be put in place to ease the problems there. Thank you. So item G, item 111, PR and IT committee. Oh, sorry, item G, similar issue. Update on parking in Park Road. So at last meeting we agreed to request for a pedestrian crossing from Highways for the junction between the cemetery and Park. Jan, could you just update us as to where we're at with that?
LCC came back and said we couldn't actually request it, it had to be the county councillor, so Councillor Tracy Carter took that on our behalf, and we received an email back to say that they have to do a study, which won't be till next spring, where they will monitor the amount of traffic and pedestrians, etc. But it's about 100,000, roughly, wasn't it, £100,000 to do the works.
Depending on what sort of crossing you went for, wasn't it? Very different.
And as a result of that, Councillor Peter Sparks asked to see their pedestrian crossing policy, which came through about 6 o'clock tonight. So you will all get to see it. So that's where we're at with that one.
Any other questions or comments on that item?
I'm hoping when they do a survey, if they do a survey, that they ask for some guidelines of when is a good time to do it.
Yes, you would hope that they come at various points in the day to assess
Yeah.
how it is at busy times and etc.
I think if we've got a concern on that, we ought to express that to Councillor Carter, because generally, TRO guys, they're really strapped for resource, as every councillor department is, and they will just find some way to turn up on the day and do a survey. That might be late on a Saturday night. So yeah, if we've got concerns, we will talk to this out back as well.
So if we could, once we've read through the policy, etc., we can respond, and closer to the time, we suggest that in these times would be suitable for doing a survey. Thank you. So, agenda item 111, PR and IT committee, and I'll invite the report from Chairman Councillor Howe.
This will be very brief. We've set our first meeting for Thursday the 9th of December, and we have 7 items on the agenda which we've all agreed to, and I'll report back again in January.
Thank you. So, agenda item 112, events committee, report from Councillor Isabel Hutchinson.
The Remembrance Parade, our clerk and our Vice Chairman attended the official training, parades and road closures run by LCC on the 20th of October, and they have now delivered that training to all of our marshals. A traffic management company has offered their services on the day to support our marshals, which we are very grateful for. Christmas, we will be running the Christmas window competition for all businesses again this year, and we're asking for businesses to have their windows ready by the 26th of November, and then there will be a public vote for the winner. We're also asking businesses if they would display an advent duck in their windows for the children to find. And then each day of Advent we will reveal where the duck is on that particular day, and that business will be promoted through social media for that day. So we're hoping that we'll have plenty of businesses wanting to take part in that, as it will help promote them and the town on the run up to Christmas. And then our next meeting in December, we will be focusing purely on Jubilee preparations, so we're getting together a bit more of a plan of what we're actually wanting to do for the Jubilee.
Okay, thank you for the report. Agenda item 113, Finance Committee, and report from Chairman Councillor Rick Stevens.
Councillor Arwick.
From
Another very productive meeting. After the meeting, we reviewed this year's spent against budget, and it became very clear that we are in danger of overspending. Therefore recommended that any spend must be reviewed where possible for the remainder of this financial year, and where possible defer into next year. We've worked very hard looking at the budget for next year. Whilst we are ready, unfortunately we have to wait for the South Holland District Council to tell us what the tax base is for the whole Beach Parish, and that doesn't come out until just before Christmas. So we're not going to be able to set the figures until January. And here, if you want to have a look, the confidential draft budget. Thank you. Some people are going to be happy when they read it, some people aren't. And may I just remind you that it's the document is confidential, not to be talked about. And last but not least, one of our goals for future years is to ensure that our reserves do meet the financial guidelines, and to ensure that we do provide best value for money to the parishioners. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, agenda item A, to agree the November payments list. It's in the drive, so has anybody got any comments or queries on that? No? Comparison and second, please? Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. Sorry, thank you. To read the bank reconciliation, D.
We have in Barclays favour account, we have £2,060, which is ring fence, and 27,815.96. Then in our CCLA account, we have £181,805.02. COIF is £50. Treasury stock is £60,037.46. And Barclays current account is actually £3,000. So we currently have £274,768.44p, less what is unpresented, leaving us with an adjusted bank balance of £236,451.53.
Right, thank you. So a proposal and a seconder for that, please. Rick and Carol. Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. So item C, to agree the Barclays card bill. Again, that is all in the drive, so any questions or queries? No?
I have one,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of £1,000. Just one out there.
On the Barclays card bill.
Yeah.
£1,000 and £1,020.
Is that for last
Virgin.
month's?
FR Jones,
Yeah.
that was already agreed at the last month, because some will be on there that's agreed.
You've got, I don't know what that company is.
It's for the postal borough.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Proposal and seconder, please. Peter, Carol, all agreed? Thank you. So item D, to agree the draft budgets for 22-23. So all the committees have submitted their draft budgets. These have been reviewed by the Finance Committee, who have put forward a draft proposal for consideration tonight. So there are some amendments. Obviously, it has been on the team drive for everyone to have a look at. Have a little read, and then does anybody have any comments on the proposal?
Yeah, I don't really want to agree this after just being handed it all now.
No, it has been on the team drive.
Yeah, I'm now seeing it all together. So
It has all been
No, it
on.
has all been on the team
I've
drive.
looked at it on the team drive.
Okay. Obviously, we have got time to make amendments to this because we can only agree the finalised one in
Yeah.
January. So,
As you say, Sophie, it's only a draft budget anyway.
yeah. So it is based on all of the ones that the committees have submitted together. That was discussed in detail at finance, which obviously is available for everybody to watch on YouTube. And then this has been put onto the team drive for agreement in draft format at full council. And then any minor amendments can be made between now and January.
Can I just ask one probably
Mhm.
silly question as to why HR data and health and safety and PR and IT are combined?
That was just purely because I was the person putting together the figures for the report. So obviously I've worked quite in detail with the IT systems, which is the majority of the PR and IT budget, and then I'm chair of it. So that's why they ended up getting all combined together as one.
You've got page missing.
Yeah, there's one business versus the rest not. And then the rest of it's on there.
Oh, right.
It's fine, it's all on the team. Yeah, so you.
They're all there. It's not always in the right order.
So does anybody have any further questions or queries on the proposed budgeting? Are we all happy? No?
Rick told me to say that,
Are we all as happy as we can be?
Sorry.
It says in here, this draft budget will probably be the final document that we use.
It will be possibly be a fun document.
Well, obviously, you've gone through as your individual committees, reviewed your budgeting, submitted that to finance, so you are happy, you've all agreed then that your individual committees, it's now just a case of bringing them all together, which finance committee has done, reviewed it, and once you put that together, you can understand how much that's going to increase the precept by, and then based on the figures from last year for bandy properties, etc. as well. So that meant that a few things had to be cut out from the budget just to bring it down to a reasonable increase realistically.
If you read the second page on the second last paragraph, it does tell you roughly what the increase is going to be. That's obviously working off this year's tax base, not the next one that was due.
So I guess I'm happy with agreeing increases in the draft, because we've got to get somewhere, we've got to have a baseline.
Yeah.
We've got a problem. Clearly there's the tax base still to come in, which we don't know what that will be. It could be here, it could be there, it could be here, which will have a direct effect on us as well. Obviously, as we consider a look at it, there may well, in fact, there will be people saying, why didn't I get that, when I get that? I think there should be room for further negotiation, such that, okay, I saw you drop this item out, I have that back in and I'll drop that out. If there's room for that kind of negotiation now when we get whether we get tax base, I think on that basis I'm happy to use this as a baseline to work on and therefore do it.
Cool. Being what I would suggest is that we, if we agree this is draft format now, then throughout all your committee meetings at the next month when you're discussing budgeting, if again we've had to cut things out based on what we know, but if there's things that you want amending, that means that roughly the figures are going to be similar, or if there's things that you think you can change, you can shave off a bit of money here, etc., then you can make those amendments ready for January.
And if you want, I'm more than happy to attend your next meetings from a financial perspective.
So, do I have a proposal? Did you want to say something?
I was going to say pretty much what you just said. That each individual committee, they can take that away and they've got time now to look at it in detail, but then they must at their next meeting come up with, if they're not happy with what's been put in there, then they need to come up with a response to that. Because we can't keep going round and round in circles. We can only do what we can do with the figures that we've got. So we have to have alternatives if people want to. If they want to keep something in, then something else has got to go. So there's got to be a little bit of jiggling.
I mean, at least we're doing things this early. We've got the time to go back and forth and have that proper consultation process between all of us before we agree it. So, do I have a proposal and a second of the first draft? Yep, Mark and Rick. Thank you. All right. All agreed? Thank you. So, item E, to agree some £500 for the additional SID. So, we have received money from our district councillors from their allocated pots of money for an additional SID, speed indicating device. And we just need to put another £500 in to be able to purchase it, which we have got the money in the budget to be able to do that this financial year. So, do I have a proposal and a seconder? Peter and Peter. All agreed? Thank you. So, item F, to agree the RBL REAP and grant, which has technically already been agreed in the November payments, but as it is a section 137 spend, it does need to be a separate agenda item. So, do I have a proposer and a seconder for this? Rachel and Sam? Yeah. All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 114, to agree all the volunteers who maintain the war memorials at Holbeach St John's and All Saints Church are volunteers for Holbeach Parish Council. So, proposer and seconder? Rachel? Carol? All agreed?
What does being volunteer imply in terms of this insurance?
So in terms of volunteer, that means that they would be covered under our insurance. So we'd work with them to get a risk assessment in place, and again, they would just notify us of the work they're going to be doing, so they would be covered if anything happened. So item 115, to agree that all marshals at the Remembrance Day Parade are volunteers of Holwich Parish Council for the period of event. Again, this is just so they're covered under our insurance if it's formally agreed. So, proposal and seconder, please. Rick, Carol? All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 116, HR, Health and Safety and Data Protection Committee. So, report by myself, Chairman of HR, to resolve to exclude the press and public under the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960 due to the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. Do I have a proposal and second of that? Sam and Peter. All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item A, update on Pavilion works. We've had the electric and building work complete now in the Pavilion, so it's all finished. We've got the whole knock through in between, so it could be used as a proper workshop, and then looking to the future, develop one side into a proper rest area with a kind of kitchenette type thing in there. So all of that main work is sorted. Agenda item B, update on asbestos in the Pavilion. So we have been through all of the minutes since 2000, and there is no evidence of asbestos ever being mentioned in the Pavilion. So I think we can safely put that on to bed now. So we've looked through everything. Item C, to discuss ways of safety for the office staff. I believe, Sam, you wanted that on the agenda, so...
Yeah, I am concerned. It has been a tricky time for us at Parish, and Jan and Randy are left in the building on their own continuously, and they have to leave at night, and it is very dark down that alleyway. I just think a personal alarm of some sort and a guarantee from us that if we're at a committee meeting, we don't leave them to lock up on their own. We do. Somebody stays with them to lock up at nights and to avoid as much as possible. So it's like risk assessing, but acting at the same time.
Yeah. I feel that put it on the next HR agenda to look into personal alarms would be a very easy thing to do. And then again, when we have committee meetings, locking up at night, just one person stay with them, and then at least you've got at least two people together at all times. Karen?
Can I just ask somebody, when somebody enters the premises, are they alone? So if somebody came to unlock in the morning to come in, would that person be on their own, or do we allow two people to come in together?
No, normally Jan is on her own. Brandy will only be there not too long afterwards. Sometimes there is other people already in the building, because obviously we've got tenants that come and go at different times of the day. So
it's during the day as well, isn't it?
I know when we in the bank, we were never allowed to enter the premises on our own. I know a bank is a different situation because you're looking at money and people might want to misappropriate that. It's just, we had an issue with females, and we always said that if it was a female, you had to be accompanied in and out. Never be in the car park on your own at night in the dark.
That's something we can look into at the next HR meeting. It's just practicalities. We've got so few staff, so it'll be working that out. But obviously, when the door opens, you have got the sound, so people are aware if anybody else comes in to enter the building. And then the premises can remain locked to the public until 9 AM when both premises staff in the building.
I think the duty was always ensure that no one leaves on their own after a meeting.
Definitely.
I think we're quite mindful of that.
So if you want to extend that thought there in the darkness down the alley in the rear of the building, I know we've got one sort of active light. Does that cover enough? You were also discussing lighting that area at the next HR meeting.
I think so, because I know I put my torch, the last time we left late at night, I put my torch on and pointed it at the lock to be able to knock up and to get us down the alleyway. And I think that's my concern. It is quite...
So I suspect additional light might be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
might be
discussing a range of options to make it safer
Safer.
for exiting and leaving the building.
John's gonna rob a miner's helmet.
Sorry?
Miner's helmet.
Yeah, with a little torchlight. Peter, did you want to say anything?
We just had a discussion as well about security during the day and that the front door being left open all the time and having a buzzer system for each of the individual offices in the building so that at least people can introduce themselves and not just wander in. Because I mean, sometimes when I walk in, the alarm goes off and by the time you've signed your name and sanitised your hands, you're still wondering, you know, who's come in, where they've gone, and sit there looking a bit worried.
How will that change when the window goes in?
Yeah, so we've got a range of options to look at the next HR committee meeting, and then hopefully we can get some things agreed to make it more safe. Right. Any other comments, or was that it? Thank you. So item D, to discuss and agree the salary review. Now I propose that we defer this until we receive the information on the clerk and deputy clerk's pay increase, which is still being negotiated by the relevant authorities. So is everybody happy? Do I have a proposer and seconder? Carolyn as well. All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 117, agenda item requests. Does anybody have any requests now? Or no?
Boston Road Car Park.
Boston Road Car Park, yeah. So if you just submit your request to the clerk in good time before the meeting, we'll let you know exactly what date closer to the time. Agenda item 118, confirm date and venue of next parish council meeting, to agree the next parish council meeting date of the 13th of December 2021 at 1900 hours at the Methodist Hall, Howard Street. Sam?
We agreed to have the next public meeting just before that.
Yes, so we have agreed for anybody who wasn't present at the floor tributes meeting previously, we've agreed to arrange another meeting at 5 o'clock just before that meeting to discuss forming a group of some sort for that and have them on their way. So that will also be on that day.
So that's open to all.
That is a public meeting again, and we'll be putting things out on social media and posters.
Councillors.
And all councillors, yeah. Yeah, so proposer and seconder for that meeting? Yeah. All agreed? Alright, thank you. Meeting closed at 19:57.